Well, we did in less than half an hour as promised. And I will now reopen the public hearing. The attorney-client, no? I will now reopen the public meeting, the board meeting of MDX.
Yeah,
The
quaint in here.
attorney-client session has now been terminated, and members of the general public are now okay. So we are in citizens' comments. So I would like to ask anybody in the audience if they wish to.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, before we do that, on the item of our executive sessions, and I want Richard, our attorney, to chime in on this. Not a matter of procedure for how MDX has historically done it, but when meetings are notified for public agencies to start, I'm not comfortable with the whole thing. We open the meeting and we tell the public, okay, now we're going to be going for a half hour. Last time it was more than an hour. So I'm hoping that the board agrees and we look for a way to structure this executive session so that they're not within the noticed
Ms.
public
Weinberg, you're
meeting.
completely correct, and I think we're going to change our procedures. The
I would
director's
feel
already-
it's much more comfortable and it's just the right thing to do for the public.
Frankly, you're absolutely correct. And the way we're going to do is we're going to have these executive meetings a half hour before and at the announced time, and I think that's the proper way to do it. And I apologize.
Separate and apart from the
Yes, ma'am.
agenda. Okay, good, thank you.
Very, very good recommendation. Do we need to approve the agenda technically, Richard?
No, but I think you wanted to move some things around.
Yes, there is one item that I would like to change. In fact, we had a placeholder. It is item 9H, the Miami Intermodal Center Conveyance and Assignment Agreement. We're still haven't concluded with the negotiations, therefore, I would request that it's not an approval item.
Okay, so
Hold
I don't think we need a motion for that, right? All right, sir.
It's on the agenda, so there should be a motion to remove it from the agenda, and you want to include it in your report, Javier?
To remove item H, is there a second? Further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? It's so removed. We are now citizens' comments. Is there anybody that wishes to address this board on any item that's before us today? Is there anybody that wishes to address the board at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I did get a comment on email of a citizen who does want to address 9A, the work program. He is on his way on Metro Rail, and he requested if it's okay that when he gets here, if he can address the board related to that item.
What I will do then, item A is the
Work program.
work program. Can we take B, C, D, E, and the others and leave A for later?
We can. There's still items before that.
Does anybody have
Gets-
objections to, if we get to that point? Okay. So then we'll roll over the citizens' comments to that time for that gentleman who's on Metro Rail. We now have item 2, which is the approval of the summary minutes for December the 10th. It's been moved and seconded for the discussion on the approval of December 10th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Now, is there a motion on January 28th? It's been moved, second? Is there a second? Second. It's been seconded, further discussion. All those in favor of the approval for January 28th, say aye. Opposed? Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Today I want to give you an update. Actually, the first item I want to update you on is on the work program. We recently held a public information workshop online. We used the online format, and we were very pleased with the outcomes. We got very good questions and good participation compared to the physical meetings we've had in the past. And we are putting a report together that we will deliver to the board members so you could see the types of comments that came in from the public. So we're going to be using these mediums more often in the future for the public meetings. As it relates to the work program, At this last MPO meeting, last Thursday, I was requested to make a presentation on our work program at the next month meeting. And the context of the presentation is the whole issue with the House Bill 353 and Senate Bill 772, and what impacts would occur if we couldn't move forward with our work program. So we will be putting together a presentation to the MPO on the projects that are included in our work program and what potentially would have to be deferred or moved or stopped if these bills move forward. To that effect, in your folder, in your manila folder, there is the white paper that was requested of staff on the impacts and issues related to both bills. As you'll see, not having the ability to implement our work program would have a significant impact on our community's economy and the future economy as far as costs. And we have been making that point to as many people who have wanted to listen. So we have been communicating that. On the Miami Intermodal Center, to give you an update, we were hoping to have the agreement before this board today. There are still a couple of open items that Secretary Pago and I will hopefully reach conclusion very shortly. I'm confident, and I know our attorneys are confident as well, that we got a good handle on them and that we will be able to reach a good resolution on how to address them and bring them before the board for final endorsement of that agreement. So we will work together to finalize that and bring it before the board. On the issue of the centralized back office. The centralized back office, as I mentioned at the last meeting, 6 teams were invited to submit proposals and price proposals. Only 5 submitted them. On March 13th and 14th, there will be oral presentations. The technical evaluation committees have been evaluating the proposals. There will be the oral session in Orlando, and we will invite a team to enter into negotiations for the centralized back room. In your packet as well, I think everyone got to save the date. This year, we're going to hold the 11th Annual Small, Local, and Minority Enterprise Conference. It'll be Thursday, May 15th at the Doubletree Hotel, which is off of Milam Dairy and the 836 by the Merchandise Mart. It's free admission. Anyone who's interested in doing business with the authority, is a small business or a local business, please register or speak to Helen Cordero. Finally, board members, I do want to mention something, and I recognize someone, Steve Andrick's dad, a patriot of this country, passed away on February 14th, and my condolences have been with Steve, and I know the board shares in the same sentiment, and he was a hero, and we await for his resting in Arlington, where it's deserved. So with that, board members, I will answer questions, and I will conclude my report.
Any questions or comments? Go to the General Counsel's report.
No report.
I would add to the MPO issue that there were 2 fairly outspoken commissioners about MDX's activities. Of course, we expect Mr. Zapata to always speak out on MDX issues. I don't think there was anything that hasn't been said many, many times. And I think Maritza says the same things that you heard for the 4 years that you were there. And we will have an opportunity to address the work program at the next MPO meeting. And you're all invited to participate, of course. Treasurer's report.
Mr. Chairman, in lieu of the Treasurer's report today, what we will do is address the comprehensive traffic and revenue study. So, Marie, may I ask you to...
Thank you very much. My name is Ed Regan, Senior Vice President, CDM Smith, and we conducted a investment-grade comprehensive traffic and revenue study in anticipation of the potential financing. I made a presentation of this at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting and was requested again because of the content, I guess, to share that with all the board members. at today's meeting. Our study was a more comprehensive study than we do routinely for additional bond issues. It had been some time since models were updated and new traffic profiles and so forth, and I think you'll find it has considerable amount of useful information. As always, it included a very detailed review of historical trends, and I'll touch on a little bit of that, on your facilities, on your system, but also a comprehensive new raw data collection program, a full set of counts on every ramp on all the expressways to get new balanced traffic profiles, which I'll share with you. Bluetooth surveys, which allow us, using just people's routine cell phones that they happen to have, identify patterns of where people get on and off the expressway system without interfering with traffic. We don't capture any information about who the people are or anything. We just basically try to get common readings at points of entry and exit so we can look at travel patterns on the system. Origin destination surveys, which were basically an outreach email went out to SunPass holders who are users of MDX facilities on a historical basis, and they were invited to participate in a online survey about the trips they make on MDX, and I think about 2,500 people did participate, so that was quite useful information. And INRIC speed profiles, this is a service where they maintain, it's a company that maintains at 5-minute increments travel speeds, actual observed travel speeds by travel direction on almost every freeway in the United States. And I know this is something that Gus probably has at District 6 and looking at the speeds, but I have information to share with you today about speeds on at least the 836 facility. The study also included an independent economics review by Washington Economics Group here in Miami, Tony Villamil and staff. A new travel demand model, the SERPA model version, I think 6.3 in this particular case, and that was updated and calibrated with all the new information we gathered about traffic counts and travel patterns. The study included a detailed analysis of the estimated impacts of traffic and revenue of the assumed final completion of the ORT to final conversion to full ORT of the entire system, which is assumed to happen in basically around the end of this calendar year and the middle of fiscal 2015. A toll sensitivity analysis, which was just basically primarily for the financial community to see where your current toll rates or those after ORT conversion stand with respect to rate optimization and maximization. The actual forecasts don't assume rate increases beyond those that are currently planned for with ORT conversion, except for inflationary adjustments that all the toll agencies are doing. SunPass volume discount program analysis, and I think a later item on the agenda will discuss that. And of course, we developed traffic and revenue forecasts through 2030 with and without the CPI rate adjustments. I'll present today those with the rate adjustments. Just some quick background information that hopefully will help us all better understand the MDX system. This is the historical trend in annual transactions going back from 2003 through 2013 on a 10-year basis. And you see major changes that have occurred on a number of cases. 2004 and 5, there were modest toll increases, which influenced traffic growth. In 2008, the Western Plaza on 836 was added to the system, which resulted in a big increase in transactions. In 2011, we saw the full effect of the conversion to ORT of 2 of your 4 facilities, which greatly increased the number of transactions and tolling points, but the average toll at each of those points was lower. In terms of revenue, also some significant changes. The effect of toll increases are shown through 2006. The effect of the additional toll plaza on the west end of 836 in 2008, and the more modest impact of increased revenue due to ORT conversion on 924 and 874. Actual revenues, by the way, in fiscal 2013 reached about $131 million as compared with about $80 million back in 2007 before the Western Toll Plaza was added. See if I can get rid of this little mistake here. Okay. This graph shows a lot of numbers, but I think it gives you a very interesting profile of users of your system and the importance. This demonstrates the importance of the MDX system, particularly SR 836, to serving the travel demand needs of Miami-Dade County. The red numbers represent average weekday traffic volumes. Those are balanced flows that basically, they're in thousands. So where you see 209.5, that's 209,500 vehicles a day on a typical weekday. And the black numbers are the annual average daily traffic, which would be a 7-day average. Obviously, it's a little bit lower than the weekdays because weekend traffic is a little bit lower. So the annual average traffic is in black, weekday conditions are in red. Of note is that the entire length of SR 836, at least east of the heft of the Flores Turnpike, between there and 95, is considerably in excess of 100,000 vehicles a day in almost all of the locations, and in above 200,000 vehicles a day on weekends in the heart of the system, between basically south of the airport, between Lejeune and SR 826. Very heavy traffic, very heavy congestion on those levels. Those are traffic levels that the only area I know that exceeds that in the county would be I-95, of course, which now, with the managed lanes that have been added to I-95, it has a total cross-section of about 12 lanes. Many of the sections on 836 are still 6-lane facilities. 874 and 878 volumes are also shown. The peak load points actually not shown here, about 122,000 just before the split with 878. About 2/3 of the 874 traffic continue on up 874 to the Palmetto, and about 1/3 of it uses the spur that goes over to Route 1. And SR 112 carries about 100,000 vehicles a day, basically, over most of its length. This is some of the INRIC speed data, and I think this is kind of important information that I wanted to share with you today. What we get when we purchase this information is basically at 5-minute increments, the speed, the actual observed speeds at all weekdays. We get it for all days. We sort out the weekdays. And then we create an annual average. So what you see here is actually an annual average of all weekdays I think this was 2012 data, if I'm not mistaken. The color coding reflects the average speed. So if it's above 55 miles an hour or so, it's green each section, and as it gets more congested, you see red and yellow and so forth areas. This is just basically on a spreadsheet that defines the actual operating speeds. The left side of this chart basically shows eastbound traffic, with on the left side we have the Turnpike, on the right side we have I-95. And vertically you have the different hours of the day. So in the eastbound direction, you can see we experience high levels of congestion just about all the way from the Turnpike to the 57th Avenue interchange. Probably the average delay in the morning peak hour there is about 10 minutes, maybe 12 in some cases. You also see delays right through the middle of the day. Now, some of that is related to the 826, 836 interchange construction, but in the eastbound direction, there actually is residual backups even during the midday period. The heaviest levels of congestion on this facility are probably about now. In the westbound direction on 836, and in this case, I-95, it's the right side of the chart, and I-95 is on the right end, and the Turnpike again is on the left. And as you can see, about this time of day, that entire section just about from the Turnpike, certainly from the 12th Street interchange and the Miami River Bridge area, all the way to beyond, or to almost to just about 826, is operating at 15 to 20 miles an hour. I'll take a chance here, folks. I don't know whether it'll be there or not, but I actually asked to see, and this is what's happening right now as we look out on that section of road on 836 today, and this happens to be at an approach to an interchange which has an additional lane, but most of that section actually only has 3 lanes. So you can actually see operating conditions, and it is now 4:40 in the afternoon. It probably will get worse before it gets better. The worst of the congestion occurs around 5:30 p.m. I kept my fingers crossed to make sure there would be congestion there. So what does it actually mean in terms of delay? What it means is a typical trip that goes from the Turnpike to I-95 experiences about 10 minutes delay in the morning peak eastbound, and about 16 to 17 minutes of delay in the afternoon peak. And if you've driven it, this will be no surprise to you. The total travel time there should be about 13 minutes. And the travel time, actual travel time today, this afternoon at this point in time, would be around 30 minutes. So in essence, on a round-trip basis, somebody who does a typical commute of coming eastbound in the morning, westbound in the afternoon, experiences around 25 minutes of delay with the current project configuration. That translates into about more than 100 hours a year of wasted time on 836, 100 hours a year, which is probably has an economic value of $1,200 to $1,500 a year per individual driver on the facility. I say this because that is the project. Basically, the project, most of the money in this next bond issue is going to solve, or try to resolve, at least on a short-term basis, that congestion problem, because it all relates to widening of 836 east of 57th Avenue, which is the remaining part of the bottleneck. It's that area on the right side, the westbound, this area right here of all the congestion. In terms of our work included an economic analysis, and this is done by Washington Economics Group. I'll just quickly summarize their work. The green bars on the left show the last 10 years, or almost a little more than that, of population growth in the county. Population increased from to about 2.5 million in 2010 in Miami-Dade County alone. This is just the county. The two bars on the right side are the projections. The blue is the official MPO forecast. The red is the forecast as adjusted by Washington Economics Group. Very small changes were made. They track very well with the MPO forecast, slightly lower in 15, I think slightly higher in 2013. But the forecast is that the population of the county will grow to about over 3 million by 2030. On the employment side, you can see the impact of the prolonged recession, where jobs in the county grew to a level of about just under 1.4 million, 1.37 million in 2005, actually dropped due to the recession to just over 1.2 million, and are projected to begin, the recovery has already started, obviously, and then continue going forward. Again, the blue is the official forecast, and the red is the WEG estimates. Jobs are expected to grow from about 1.21 million in 2010, closer to actually 1.4 by 2015, up to about 1.8 million in 2030. This is the unemployment tracking, and you can see at the national and versus Miami-Dade County unemployment levels. Miami-Dade County shown in red. The whole country experienced a huge unemployment hit, as we all know, in 2008 and beyond, and it's gradually and slowly and grudgingly improving to a point where it was around 6.4, I think, percent in December, right at the end of 2013. Miami-Dade County trends were a little worse, but they are now coming back closer to national levels. And Tony Villamil says that the primary reason that the slightly higher and lag in the Miami County recession, unemployment level rather, was because of the fact that the county has such a high level of international trade and an international part of its open economy, and the rest of the world was actually lagging in the United States in some of the trading markets in recovery. But basically everything is coming together by the end of 2013. Switching now to the toll rate assumptions for the full system with ORT conversion. Obviously 924, 874, 878 as is, and there's no change assumed in that whatsoever. These are rates, by the way, that are soon to be implemented in fiscal 2015, basically at the end of this year. SR 112 today only has one toll plaza in one direction east of 17th Avenue, and it's going to be replaced by two tolling points to cover both directions at considerably lower rates. Today it's a $1 Sun Pass toll in one direction. In the future it'll be two locations, each direction, 35 cents each. That means that the round-trip toll will be about $1.40 in the future as opposed to $1 today. So it's a slight increase. The biggest issue there is there's more people that today don't pay any toll, like everybody in a westbound direction, will be brought into the toll condition. 836 is where the biggest change occurs. We have a two-directional toll plaza east of 107th Avenue today, and the SunPass rate there is 75 cents. That's actually going to drop to 70 cents. We have a one-way toll plaza west of 17th Avenue on the east end of the facility. That today is $1 in one direction. That's going to be replaced by a two-way tolling point of 70 cents each direction. But the biggest change is the introduction of additional tolling point west of 57th Avenue, just south of the airport, another tolling point at 70 cents for SunPass users. In all the cases, the video toll users without SunPass are paying twice the rates you see here. There's also a limited number of small ramp tolling gantries that are established. All the ramp locations plus the main line on the extension to 137th Avenue are all assumed to have 30-cent toll plazas. In his case, the toll rates do go up. A full trip from, well, let's just include from the Turnpike to I-95 goes from a one-way toll of $1.75 in one direction and 75 cents in the other direction, so the round trip toll is $2.50, to a $2.10 toll in each direction. So it goes from $2.50 to $4.20 in terms of that. So that is a real increase. But the most important thing is that you've got about, today, under the current system, you've got 56.2% of the drivers that are paying no tolls on SR 836. And we measured that through the Bluetooth survey, and there's a significant increase, obviously, in the number of the proportion of traffic which is increasing, or is paying tolls. This is from the Bluetooth surveys to give you a perspective on 836. As I said, that's the facility, the biggest one, and it's also the one that is undergoing the most change with the conversion ORT. And this shows the percentage of those 836 trips that will, in the future, go through one gantry, one mainline gantry, in some cases also including an additional ramp. So the toll for those people would be 70 cents to $1, depending on whether they go through a ramp location. That actually represents more than half of all the users of 836. There's about 416,000 trips a day, based on the total entering vehicles that enter at the two ends and any intermediate interchange on the system. Okay, the total trips about 416,000, and more than half of them basically only will pay $1 or less, 70 cents or less. Trips that 20.8%, 21% go through two mainline gantries, and in some cases, in addition to one ramp, they would pay between $1.40 and $1.70. Those that go through three mainline gantries, all three of the 70-cent plazas, represent only 10% of the traffic, which translates into about 40,000 trips out of the 416,000 that's on the system. And 16.7% go through no mainline gantries. You go through no 70-cent toll there, make short trips that only pay the 30-cent ramp toll or on the extension. And basically, those are 16.7. Through trips, Heft I-95, for example, is only 4.1% of the traffic, which means it's less than 20,000 trips per day go end to end. The average SunPass toll with the closing of the system, with the expansion to full ORT, will be about $1.20 per trip. Not per location, but per trip, based on the number of trips each vehicle goes through. Yes, sir.
What is the equivalent number today for the average SunPass toll?
I'm gonna have to dig that out. I think it was not. I think yes. I think it was just under $1. Either it's $1 plus or minus a couple of cents. It might be like 96 cents to $1.04, something like that.
That's what
but that's on the
us.
full system, I think. I don't think that's only.
You told us last time. I mean, at the committee meeting.
Right. Yeah, I forgot that. Sorry, Mayor. This toll sensitivity analysis was done kind of for hypothetical reasons. As I said, the forecast doesn't assume any real increases in rates, other than inflationary adjustments that start in 2018. But this was done at 2015 levels to see to what extent you could increase your revenue if you ever needed to through additional toll increases. And you can see the green is the SunPass rates. The rates you're charging with the full extension of ORT are about half of the maximum rates. That doesn't mean you could double your revenue. It just means you would continue to increase SunPass revenue with a 50, 60, or even 100% increase in rates. That's probably about as high as you could go. I will say, though, that the video rates, the red, are almost at the maximum now, and that's because video rates have been established to be double the SunPass rates. So if you doubled SunPass rates, kept that same relationship, you'd actually slightly reduce your video tolls. Your overall toll revenue, the black line, would probably be maximized at rates about twice what they are on the system today, or in 2015. This shows the impact, just a quick summary. It was a much more detailed analysis in this of what happens to transactions and annual revenue, annual transactions and revenue. Obviously, there's a big increase in transactions on the two facilities, 112 and 836, because we're increasing significantly the number of tolling points, but the average toll collected at each of those points is lower than at the current locations. So transactions go up by 200% to 300%. Doubling and tripling and so forth, especially on 112, which has only a one-way plaza, one single one-way plaza. Revenue goes up by about 70% on 112, mostly because of a lot of trips today that don't pay any toll being incorporated into the toll system. And revenue goes up by about 100%, just about an almost exact doubling on 836. And that comes primarily from the 55 or 56% of trips that are not paying any toll now. They are now brought into the system. Any questions on this? And finally, our revenue forecast. The yellow is shows the SunPass revenue, which obviously stays at about 85%. We are assuming an increase, a gradual increase in the SunPass penetration, but we're also assuming in the video component, which is red, improved performance in terms of collection and reduced leakage basically over time as you get better collection techniques, better video equipment, and so on and so forth over the period of time. The cash, shown in green just in the first few years, disappears completely by the end of 2015. The CPI adjustments are assumed to begin, the annual adjustments are assumed to begin in 2018. By the way, revenue in 2014 is currently projected at slightly less than 13, and that's because of this transition. It's not, traffic is actually up a little bit because of the transition and delayed invoicing and so forth of video transactions. But based on the Finance Committee presentation that Marie made, I think we're probably going to be too conservative there. It looks as if your actual revenue will come in at least as much as what 2013 was, even with the delayed collections issue. The big increase in 15 and 16 is the progressive impact of the ORT conversion, and that's obviously happens over a period of 2 fiscal years since it gets launched in the middle of fiscal 2015. 2018 is when you begin to see the CPI adjustment. This forecast assumes it will be applied annually. I realize that you have the ability to choose to do that or not, but it also assumes that it can be rounded to pennies, the rates, as all the other agencies using AET, all electronic tolling, are doing, and that allows you to do that on the annual basis rather than waiting for a convenient year to round to the nearest nickel. Revenue in 2018 is estimated at $230 million, growing to about $420 million in 2030. That's a growth rate, an average growth rate of about 5% per year, but that part of that, we've assumed a CPI going forward based on WEG recommendations of 2.4% per year. So the real growth in revenue is around 2.6. And of that growth in revenue, about 0.3% comes from assumed gradual improvement in the collection rate on video tolling. So the real growth rate of revenue and traffic and so forth is closer to about 2.3% or so per year, which is actually consistent with, if not slightly lower, than the history goes. The one thing I forgot to mention, and the Budget and Finance Committee did ask me to address it, was where do the current rates after the conversion of the system stand on a per-mile basis to other toll facilities. And
Toll facilities in Florida.
well, we looked at they're very close to the ones in Florida. Most of the ones in Florida are around the same rates. They're generally between 14 and 17 or 18 cents a mile. Your system-wide rates will be around 16.6 cents a mile. And without that much variation, I think 924, because if it's short length, has the highest per-mile rates, even though it has one of the lower tolls. But the overall system is 16.6 cents after all the conversion, all these additional tolling points are put in. We looked at 23 different urban facilities around the United States, and I think, actually 20, we took out a couple, but 20 of those, 6 of them had rates, average per mile rates that are lower than the future rates on MDX, the future rates in 2015. 6 had lower, 14 had higher rates per mile, and the rates varied from about 13 cents a mile to 37 cents a mile, and you're at 16.6.
And what's the average?
The overall average is probably, we didn't actually do it, but you'd have to also weight it, but it's probably around 20 cents a mile. You're still below the average. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Regan. Are there any questions? Any comments? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Percival, I saw you come in. Are you still here? Oh, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon, Mr. Percival. Sit down, sit down.
Chairman, that was the report.
Yeah.
We're going to forego the treasurer's report at this time. So,
Okay, Mr. Percival. This is citizens' comments. Mr. Percival, since you called and told us that you were on Metro Rail, we set some time aside for you. You know that our rules are 3 minutes. I will give you a little bit longer than that, but it is now almost 5 o'clock. We're a little bit behind our schedule, so I would be grateful if you could get right to the point, and only on issues dealing with the agenda, on agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, board members. Lawrence Percival, Greater Kendall Community Activists Incorporated. I attended the CITT Transportation Summit on Saturday. I did get the chance to talk with Gus, but I missed having the opportunity to speak with you. To the issue related to the 874 expansion coming out to West Kendall, I'd like to create a vision for your board if you don't already have this vision as a part of your work plan. And it is, one, to make some suggestions to the MPO and, of course, to our county commissioners to influence some decision-making on part of Miami-Dade Transit. And the idea is, when you get to the point of your negotiations, which I understand will be coming up in the next 3 months, to try and acquire the property that used to be known as Signature Gardens. I'm not going to get into details about all of that, but just to say that once that negotiation happens.
Usually you're well informed.
Well, I make a habit of doing that, sir.
Go ahead.
When that property comes up for negotiations from the church, I would hope that it would be the goal of this board to, in the best faith effort, to negotiate with a willing seller, which I hope will be the case, to acquire the entire property for the purposes that you had previously considered, one of which was to potentially use some of the property for your maintenance needs, operational needs, and additionally for the possibility of a park and ride. The vision that I would like to ask you to consider is to go beyond the idea of a park and ride and to create another revenue stream opportunity for your bondholders to build a parking garage, if it's appropriate, and depending on the size and the limitations and what zoning would allow you to do and all the other stuff, to create a parking garage and then partner with Miami-Dade Transit to allow us to have the ability to get out of our cars in West Kendall and take the connection of the accentuated bus, I think that's whatever the term is for the bus, articulated, that's it, the articulated bus, which is a fancier, bigger bus that allows us to get to the Dayland station and then allows us to take the train. Today I was very adventurous, and for the first time I did take the transit here to your building. It was a bit of a surprise in some ways, and it was a bit of a walk over there to here, but I got some good exercise. Beyond that, there is one other opportunity. Along 127th Avenue at Kendall Drive and 127th, Miami-Dade Transit has entered into contract agreements with Florida Power and Light to, I believe it's to lease rather than own the property at the area under the power lines to build a park and ride so that there will be opportunities for better chances for people to get out of their cars and get on the buses to go to Metro Rail. As that happens, which I believe it's supposed to be online by 2017, Then there'll be another opportunity for Miami-Dade Transit to consider extending a new route up 127th Avenue. So here's the vision that I would like to present to you for consideration. Up until now, we do not have connectivity to go further south on 127th Avenue beyond 136th Street. It dead ends at the CSX Railroad at approximately 144th Street. So here's my vision. I don't see the political will of the county commissioner of that area, Commissioner Moss, to make arrangements for that road to open up to traffic, because the folks in Deerwood and at Jack Gordon Elementary would probably be ready to scream and yell and put up a big fight. But I don't see why we couldn't look at the possibility of having permanent arms, if you will, that stop the traffic on both sides of the CSX Railroad and only allow it to operate when the bus driver pushes a button and it goes up so he can go across. And we can have bus routes that go from Metro Zoo all the way up 127th Avenue to whatever point north it's most appropriate, and then come back again in whatever appropriate timeframes there are based on the needs. So along that transit corridor, we have opportunities for additional parks and rides all along the Florida Power and Light Power Line corridor. They are more than anxious to partner with opportunities for their stockholders. I just have just a little bit more, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So I don't know where the political will for this is at this point, but I would ask that you guys look at the revenue streams of a parking facility that could be bonded out to your stockholders, to your bond, to the bond sales, to generate revenue for people who park at the parking garages. So it would fit into the mission of what you do as a part of your road building and the extension of 874. Of course, you're already going to, if I know my facts correctly, you're already going to pay for the build out of 127th Avenue and 128th Street and some other things like that all the way to 137th Avenue. My understanding, though, is a question mark as to how far south you're going to go on 127th Avenue. I would hope that you would make it 4-laned all the way to the railroad, 144th Street, for future opportunities. I believe that it would be incumbent upon you as an agency to do that and then partner with Public Works later to get paid back at the appropriate time for what you're doing on their behalf. There's going to require some traffic lights and some other things as a part of that. But if you guys don't do it, we're going to be looking at it until 2030 before anything else happens. So I would ask you, as the agency that has the most means, the most efficiency, and the most ability, to consider doing something for the greater good of the residents of West Kendall. That being said, I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your always perceptive comments, Mr. Percival.
And lastly, sir, as it relates to the overall improvements in your annual revenue forecasts, given time, I would hope that eventually, even though you have expansion plans and other things, you'll be able to keep the cost per mile at a reasonable rate so that it stays affordable for people who don't otherwise have the wherewithal to pay for your toll roads. And you'll get more money on the volume than you will from people wanting to continue to boycott using your system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Percival,
Yes, sir.
I want to commend you for your intrinsic knowledge. I am a professional in the real estate business, and I do know that corridor quite well. I can tell you that one of the problems for crossing 127th is it is Deerwood and it is a little bit political, but CSX Railroad had some very stringent rules where they cannot close or open a crossing without a equal crossing being open or closed elsewhere. And Javier knows this very well, and so does Gus Pego. So it's a bit of a very complicated issue. I know Dade County has been trying to do that for the last 10 years, so it's been very difficult. The other part is that you're correct that FP&L will lease the parcels underneath their power lines all the way down to 112th Street, and that should be used for parking. Yeah.
They're willing to
Yeah,
go
you're
further.
absolutely right. So that is very, very doable. And thank you for the input.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, I see that you're standing.
Yes, very, very brief.
Go ahead.
Carlos Garcia with the Rollback Tolls. Mr. Reagan was speaking about a survey I did not receive a copy of the survey, and I'm very well connected to Kendall. Not one person communicated to me that they had received a survey. Was this survey sent to the people of Kendall?
No, it was any SunPass holders in a list. Actually, the Turnpike sent it out for us. We just gave them an invitation to send emails. If they had email addresses for SunPass users, they got it.
We randomly,
It wasn't handed out or mailed out.
correct. We emailed SunPass customers. The SunPass went ahead and submitted it to about 130 SunPass accounts, and they randomly selected various zip codes.
Oh, okay. If I could request a copy of the survey.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're now on the committee reports, but I'm going to roll them into because they're all action items that are coming up in the regular agenda. So we're now on the consent agenda for travel approval. Is there a motion? Second, and further discussion on item 8A. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We're now on item 9A. Mr. Director?
Mr. Attorney is going to read it into the record.
Read it.
Read it to the record.
Approval of MDX FY 2015-2019 5-year work program, transportation improvement, capital improvement, and renewal and replacement programs, $879.2 million, endorsed by Operations Committee 2/18/14.
This has been presented at the Operations Committee. Does anybody on the board want to hear this again
Presentation on this.
or presentation?
We are prepared to present again if the board so pleases.
If not, is there a motion to approve item 9A? Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion on the approval of 9A. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? It's carried unanimously. We're now on public hearing item B.
Approval of Resolution 1401, issue bond series 2014A not to exceed $360 million, which was endorsed by the Budget and Finance Committee on 2/19/14.
All right. This is a public hearing. The public hearing is open on this item. All right, Mr. Director, seeing that there's no one that's standing up, I guess technically we have to close the public hearing on this item?
Close the public hearing.
Is there a motion to
and
close the public hearing on item 9B? Moved and seconded. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Mr. Director.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and Mr. Treasurer, if you want to add anything. This is a Resolution 1401 authorizing the issuance of MDX toll bonds series, Revenue Bond Series 2014A in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $360 million. What we're approving today is all of the documents that are prepared for that total amount. There was discussion at committee about a not to exceed amount higher, but these documents that are before you are for 360 and are the basis of our finance plan that was before you.
The committee approved 550, but that's a theoretical number. The actual papers were prepared for 360, and that's what we're going on. If we change that, then we have to come back and go through committee and the board again. But this is what we've been working on so far that has been previously approved. Are there any questions, further discussion? Is there a motion on item 9?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Just for
ma'am.
clarification, it doesn't go higher than 360 unless it comes back to the
Of
board?
course.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Is there a motion on item 9B?
I will move it.
Is there a second, further discussion? Well, it's been moved and seconded, further discussion.
Let's have a roll call on this. It requires
All
a
right.
2/3 vote, please.
Please, 2/3 of those present.
2/3 of the board, which is 8.
Is Mr. Avia on the phone?
No, no longer. He had to hang up.
Roll call.
All right, call the roll.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez Pina, Mr. Sanabria, Ms. Fano, Ms. Weinberg,
Yes.
Secretary Pago, Treasurer Fernandez Guzman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gutierrez, Chair Ferre.
Yes. We're now on item 6. The item B passed unanimously, and we had more than the required 8 votes. We are now on item 9C.
Approval of a customer rewards volume frequency program, which was endorsed by the Budget and Finance Committee on 2/19/14.
Director?
Again, As we discussed at Budget and Finance, the Customer Rewards Program is made up of three sections. There are 2 affinity programs, and there is a volume frequency discount program that staff is recommending at a 10% level with a $30 per quarter cap. Our goal is to implement the affinity program starting in July of 2014 and starting the volume frequency discount in July of 2015.
The Chairman,
Go ahead,
because
Mr.
there's a lot of public interest in our toll rates, et cetera, I would request that for the benefit of the public, that we have a more comprehensive presentation about this discount program,
I
so
support.
it's fully.
Thank you,
fully-
sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Executive
Chairman.
Director,
We're going to load it up, board members.
is it being loaded up?
Yes, we'll do that. Apology.
Good afternoon. This is the presentation we presented at the Budget and Finance meeting. I won't go through all the slides, but I'll give you the highlights of the presentation. The toll policy that was passed on March 19, 2013 required that we have a volume frequency discount program, and certain criteria were set out in that policy. This was for SunPass customers only with 2-axle vehicles. The customer had to be in good standing with SunPass. This was an opt-in program, and we were going to start open enrollment January 2nd of 2015. So customers could go online and register for the program. And as we indicated back in March, we didn't know exactly how the program was going to make up of the program, and that's what this presentation is about. Toll policy also required that to qualify for the program, a commuter would have to travel 66 days out of 90 days and a quarter. There'd be a rebate check that is sent to the SunPass customer, and the financial impact would be incorporated into our annual budget. We have an annual workshop on every April, whereabouts. At the last Budget and Finance meeting in January, the committee members expressed an interest to be more inclusive, not just to SunPass customers, but for all our toll pay users. So the committee came up with what they believe was more an inclusive program to have a sponsorship program. And there was 2 participation levels, the Affinity program and the Premier Affinity program. The Affinity program is available to all customers, whether you're a SunPass customer or a toll-by-plate customer. You still must register with MDX, and in order to be part of the program, you have to fill out a customer survey. And the purpose was that is really to get to know our users better, where they travel, and it provides us better information for traffic analysis. Then the Premier program really applied more to the SunPass customers. These customers do not travel 66 days in a quarter, but less than. So we wanted, again, to have everybody participate in some type of program. And then the volume frequency discount program was exactly what the criteria of the policy was. So the discount program that we did an analysis for was that we looked at a 5% discount or a 10% or 15% discount program. And as Ed Reagan indicated, the average toll trip was $1.20. So we looked at different ranges of what the impact to customers would be. So we tested each of the scenarios. We provided for the 10% discount in our traffic study for rating agencies, and we did apply a cap to this. Go back here. Let me give back to this particular slide. But this slide will show that if a customer spends $100 to $200, they'll get $16 back each quarter. A customer who spends $200 to almost $300 a quarter would get $25 back. And then $300 or more, they would apply the cap of $30. So the recommendation of staff was, number one, to implement the sponsorship program this upcoming fiscal year. Fiscal year 15 would be where the sponsorship program would start, and we would incorporate that into the budget. And we feel that just the consultant's time to get sponsors and so forth, so it'd be at a minimal cost. And then for fiscal 16, which will be July 1st of 2015, is when the customer awards program would start. And based upon the actions of this board today, we'll develop an implementation plan and we'll begin the process of communicating to the public.
Marie, do you want to add that other reward programs are also being looked at and going to be examined over time to be introduced, specifically by the request of Mr. Sanabria, who wanted a prepaid program that would grant greater levels of discount?
Yeah, we will be coming back to the board with, under your leadership, for an annual pass, a prepaid annual pass, and that will be developed, the policy will be developed in the next month or so. Hopefully, we'll have some options then, in addition to these things.
All right, the chair recognizes the vice chair for any comments, or if there's nobody else that wants to make a comment.
I have a question.
You have a question, all right.
Ladies first.
No, up to you.
Why, thank you. How did we come, and I apologize for not participating in this. First, I'd like to thank the work. I think it's a step in the absolute right direction for our people, and the work of staff and our members that have been part of this should be exemplified. I am questioning, how did we come up with the number 66 out of 90 days? I'm curious. No, I know it's more than 50, but I mean, does that require any of our business members who use the tollways Monday through Friday, if they only use it Monday through Friday through that 90-day period, will that satisfy the 66 days is my question.
What the analysis showed on the traffic and revenue report was almost 43% of our SunPass users would qualify for the program.
Okay. Not quite the question I asked. I mean, my question simply is,
Answer is yes.
Is it a yes?
Yes.
That's all I want to know. Thank you. 'Cause
That's
I
why
didn't want to do the math.
That's why we did
Put
the
it-
66 out of 90, and we took
Perfect.
into account the weekends, and we wanted to reward the most frequent of commuters, and it was addressing the longest round trip,
Great.
which
And-
was the 10% that Mr. Regan presented.
Minimize the importance of our weekend travelers and our clients, but, you know, our meat and potatoes are those who use the tolls, like myself, 5 days a week, so.
Ms. Smith-Fano.
What if someone travels several times a day, but not many days a week? For example, I go on it 2 or 3 times in one day, maybe not another day. You're doing it by days as opposed to frequency. How do you help the people that frequent?
It's based upon days, but we also look at the amount spent. Depending upon the amount spent is what is your discount based upon.
So
And that
there's a
sounds like it-
correlation. Thank you.
Qualify under the Premier Affinity, no? Because then it's anything less than 66 days. You may not have the day
But you have
on
the
the account, but
the
you have
amount.
certain usage, correct?
So they would qualify for the Premier Affinity program.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're Premier. That's all I heard. I'm
Any other
Premier.
questions? All right, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Chair. I think we've come a long way with the discount program, and it's long awaited for the community, especially at this time when everybody is expected to receive a toll increase, but there is a rebate where you're assisted, basically, because you get something. But this program has received a lot of input from various board members over time, and most recently also by Rick, who came up with the idea, and Marie with the affinity program. So everybody wins. But I really have to thank our executive director, our chair, and our CFO that kept the warmth going, that did not lose and stop the beat to get this to this point. It's not easy to actually get something like this implemented. There's a lot of obstacles because we really cannot give free tolls. This is something that has to be considered. So we are here today because a lot of sweat, and you have probably a lot of screaming and pulling hair, and I'm very happy to say and very proud that we're able to adopt this today. So I do want to make that motion.
It's been moved by the vice chair. Who's seconding it?
Everybody can second
Yeah,
it.
we
I
have-
welcome everybody to
We have
second
a,
it.
we have a motion and a second. As chair, let me say that Maritza's being modest because without her consistency and intensity, we wouldn't be anywhere near. So it is really her doing, and let the record reflect that. So are we ready to vote now?
Chairman, quick comment, really. I too want to recognize, the vision that was had way before I got here, as a new board member. Clearly, this was way in advance of my arrival, so I recognize the board and Maritza for doing that. I can tell you, and I'm appreciative for the opportunity to have contributed a little bit, and the perspective that went into this. We got to provide our customer value. When you're going to increase tolls, people got to feel that they got to get something back out of it. This was done with the intent of giving something to everyone, that they recognize that, we value them as customers, that we are here for them. So this was a lot of effort, again, and I commend Ms. Gutierrez. It's a Herculean effort, and this was done with from a good place in our hearts and our fiduciary responsibility to our customers.
All right, call the roll, because I think this is important enough to call the roll. Even though I predict that it's going to be unanimous.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Martinez. Mr.
Yes.
Rodriguez Pina. Mr. Sanabria. Ms. Vano. Ms. Weinberg.
Yes.
Secretary Pago. Treasurer Fernandez Guzman. Vice Chair Gutierrez. Chair Ferre.
Yes, and so it passes unanimously. We're now on item D.
Approval of revisions to the MDX property acquisition policy endorsed by the Operations Committee on January 22nd, 2014, and Policy Planning Committee on February 18th, 2014.
Chairman, a motion to approve.
Are there any questions on the issue? Mr. Sanabria?
No, I read it. I was only concerned about the indemnity, and I'm totally satisfied with the answers that we got. We have full indemnity from the school board on the operation of the yard and the loading, unloading of students, so I'm more than happy to make a motion to
Is there a
approve.
second?
Board members, that's that's a different item. That's item G. We're on item D right
D,
now.
we're on item
Okay.
D.
We'll hold that for
Are there any questions on item D?
So we
Is there?
He's ready to
is there a second item? Is there a second? It's been moved, it's moved and seconded. All in
Let's get
favor
to
of
G,
item
hurry
D?
up.
Say aye. Opposed? It passes. We're now on item E.
Approval of revisions to the local business preference policy and procurement policy endorsed by the Policy and Planning Committee, February 18th, 2014.
Any questions?
Moved.
Go ahead, Mr. Director.
Board members, this is it was thoroughly discussed at Policy and Planning. It removes any mention of a preference as indicated by the Attorney General's request. It also changed or modified the local business eligibility criteria, where now firms have to meet 2 out of 3 criteria, and that was unanimously passed at Policy and Planning.
Okay, questions? Is there a motion?
We're definitely on E now, right?
Ronnie,
And it is Tuesday? Okay. Mr. Chairman,
He's been moved. Is there
I have a
second?
comment on this, if I have.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. It says here the enabling legislation. I'd like to have that clarified. What does that mean, state or local? And is there such a thing as a pending bill to recognize the small business participation or not?
I'll let the attorney.
It needs to be included in some form of state legislation, and I've provided the executive director with some very brief language that can be inserted virtually any place in the statute that would solve this problem.
Special districts, and that's the issue. We're considered a special district, so that's one avenue that we need to get as far as
Under
enabling
state law, we're a
legislation.
special
District.
So we're taking it out because it's required to be taken out, but are we
We're taking-
looking at the possibility of requesting those? Okay, got it.
Yes. We're taking it out to manage expectations of the public that look at our policy and see 4 options, 3 of which we can't do because we're not allowed to. So we're taking those 3 out. We're stressing how you're eligible, and then we're pursuing the legislature to grant us the ability for special districts.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Now on item F.
Approval of revisions to the small business participation policy endorsed by the Policy and Planning Committee on February 18th, 2014.
Sharon?
Questions? Go ahead. Mr. Rodriguez-Pena.
Thank you. Regarding the crafting of this, who was involved, from the staff? Clearly legal, but who else was involved?
Mr. Director.
The current version in front of you or the original version?
Yes, the proposed version.
Myself and
Okay.
legal.
From a board member's perspective, was there one board member that was involved in the details, making sure that we had a perspective, did anybody help craft that? It's a pretty extensive revision, and I understand a lot of it's clarification. I do have some questions. Mr. Toledo and I did speak, and he gave me some clarification, but it just seems like there was a lot, and I have great faith in staff, so it's not a question of staff. It's just a matter of from a policy perspective. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to support it. The issues here not to speak against is I just think that it requires one of us to be a technical expert, and I find myself in maybe a unique place that I'm not really a technical expert, and this is a very important item that I would like to sit down with staff and really understand it. So,
Just a comment. It is my understanding, however, that this policy was fully vetted by the appropriate committee. So there was the opportunity for any board member in that committee to exercise that right.
And there was ample discussion.
And ample discussion. So I just want to make clear that it was not in any way, shape, or form in a vacuum.
Mr. Chairman, absolutely, that was not my implication, nor did I want to imply that.
He's just clarifying the record.
Just clarifying for the record.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Now, Mr. Sanabria, we are on item G, and you can ask all the questions and make all the comments.
After I read it and we get a motion. Approval of extension of School Board of Miami-Dade of Miami lease for parcel 878-500C, endorsed by the Operations Committee on 2/18/14.
Mr. Sanabria.
Motion approved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second to the motion?
Sorry.
Are there any further discussions or questions? If not, all those in favor of item G, say aye. Opposed? It's carried unanimously. What else do we have, Mr.
Actually,
Executive Director?
I believe there's a comment. by
I have a question and a request, Mr. Chairman, if I may. In light of some of the developments concerning the filing of forms with respect to financial disclosure, I would like to ask council a question. Is MDX empowered in any way, shape, or form to take any administrative action or to any administrative procedure when a filing is not done on a timely basis?
Not under your bylaws or your legislation. It really, the issue of filing of these forms is really governed by the State of Florida Commission on Ethics. And I've discussed with the executive director and with you briefly whether there was something that we can do. And I would be concerned about the agent, even though I know that people are concerned about the issue. I'm concerned about the agency getting in the middle of this, taking on responsibility for doing that. I know as a courtesy that the agency does try to follow up with board members and so forth, but in terms of putting something in your bylaws, I'd be concerned about that.
The second portion of that question, are we notified officially when this filing does not take place on a timely basis?
You'd have to check with the executive director.
We are copied. The appointing agency is notified. The person is notified, and then as a courtesy copy, we're notified.
Well, from a practical point of view, there are only two appointing agencies. One is the governor, and the other is the county commission. So the governor's office is notified, and the chair of the Board of County Commissioners is notified. We get a copy.
So my recommendation then would be for us to approach this from an ethical perspective and for the board to consider taking a position on this that basically states that any member of the board that does not file on a timely basis is in violation of those filings, exclude themselves for voting on any financial issue related to the agency. That would just be my recommendation and a consideration.
I think the way to do this, Mr. Treasurer, is to go through the proper committee and then come back.
If I could make that request.
So, Richard, if you could work
Right, we can come
with Carlos.
because of the state law that prohibits board members from abstaining from voting unless they have a conflict of interest, and it requires them to cast a vote. But what I'd like to suggest is that we work with your staff to come up with some options. I certainly understand that this is an important issue for the board, and let's see what we can come up with that might sort of emphasize and highlight the fact that the board is very interested in this and considers it to be very important. You're welcome.
Anything else to come up?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
No, Mr. Chair, now when you open up your chairman's comment, I think it would be very appropriate to acknowledge the documentation that we got on the white paper.
I'd like to recognize you to speak to it. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. I think everybody got on, all the board members received the package. We requested this at Budget and Finance the other day, and the team has given us the documentation of what this means to the work program and how this really impacts Miami-Dade as a whole, and also the workers, the workforce in Miami-Dade. And if you look at the document that's been presented, it's astonishing what the impact is going to be in terms of the labor income that's going to be foregone. It's over $700 million.
Vice Chair, while you're doing that, is it possible to have that one sheet up on the screen? Yeah. I think it'll be interesting for the public to see.
Let's ask.
The chart, the dollar chart.
Marie, can we
The
load
good
this? Mr. Executive Director, excuse me, yeah.
Right.
Request to load this item on. This is from the Washington Economics Group.
We can't put
We
it
don't
on the
have it,
screen.
but we'll make copies for anyone who wishes to.
Yeah,
Call
this
the board
particular
members.
document, right, this particular document outlines the impact of how it's going to affect not only, it's not about MDX, it's about what it's going to do to other organizations that also live off of the connectivity that MDX would have provided with all the improvements that would be in the books. But what's so alarming is the amount of jobs, skilled jobs, that are going to be lost. And when I see this, I question, this is what we need to be talking about. This is how we frame the conversation. We would lose over 14,000 skilled and professional jobs. That would be direct and indirect loss. Okay, that's over $750 million in lost wages to Miami-Dade. That's people out there. We talked about today the traffic study and how Miami-Dade is recovering from the crisis that we've been enduring for over years. Well, you know what? If something happens with this bill and it continues the way that it's being addressed, well, Miami-Dade is going to have another crisis hit it because of this impact. And not only that, but also our hospital is going to be crippled, because what happens to the emergency lanes? What also happens to all the funding that has been given to the Port of Miami? So the growth, the expansion. If you document everything that has been written here and we say it out loud, the impact, it's so detrimental that it's scaring. It's sort of like, stop everybody, let's talk about this. What I wanted to do is this type of information needs to get out to our Miami-Dade County commissioners. I would highly recommend that our executive director write a very quick letter and provide all this information to our chairwoman and all the county commissioners.
I would like to also request that the same be sent to the chair of the day delegation.
Absolutely.
And the full membership.
And the full
And
membership.
to the governor and lieutenant governor of the state. of
Absolutely.
Florida.
I think the media should get a hold of this, too.
This is not, this is not for us to go in and give to the media. I think the officials.
Well, I disagree,
this
because,
is- this-
let me explain why I feel. Give me a minute,
Wait,
Madam Chair. When I requested this white paper, one of the things that I mentioned,
I'm sorry.
She has the floor, and you're
Sorry.
interrupting her, and I'm asking you to just hold on until
Okay.
she finishes.
Mr.
Well,
Sanabria,
yeah,
this
that's
is
fine.
not to create fanfare. This is to create
Not to
information.
create fanfare.
No, this is not to create fanfare.
Right.
Or to start up any fireworks. The
Right.
key to this is to provide it to the officials, okay, that need to know what this means and how it relates back to them and how it will affect this community. We should not be looking for, let's get in the news. This will, by itself, get into the news. We do not need to activate any advocacy on this document, on this very important information, but we do need to get it to all the Dade delegations, the
All right.
chairman, the governor, and our Miami-Dade County
Mr.
officials.
Sanabria.
well, thank you, and I appreciate the comments of the Vice Chair. This is why I think that the public should know. When it takes a little longer to get home, or a lot longer to get home when these projects don't get built, when businesses are not able to run their missions of getting so many calls out there, when tourists delay themselves in getting to the port, it's just a catastrophe, a man-made, unnecessary catastrophe. And that is a very significant impact. It's not just on the jobs. The jobs are definitely a big factor. It's on the quality of life and the future of this county. The benefit for everybody concerned that lives here is going to be restricted by limited roadways that could have been built, but weren't built because of a man-made disaster that's, orchestrated. And I totally disagree. I think it should be the public. If the public knew what the consequences of this are, they'd be up in arms about this, more so than you think.
I'll recognize you in a moment, but Mr. Sanabria, today is the 25th day of February. This matter so far has not been heard in committee, and the legislative session begins on March the 3rd. We have a very capable representation in Tallahassee. The executive director and Mr. Fausto Gomez and others are working very diligently, quietly. My personal experience over 40 years of public service, including serving as a state legislator, is that sometimes you accomplish a lot more in a very quiet and firm way than to be unnecessarily. This is an important. You're absolutely right. This is an important issue, but I think the press is going to pick this thing up sooner or later. Hopefully, it'll be later, and hopefully, we're going to be able to get past this crisis because there's a lot riding on it. The people that are involved, the authors of this, and the people that have been pushing this are very aware of what all this means. And I have been extreme as the chair, and since I'm very directly involved in these bills, I've been, as you can see, very quiet. I haven't gone to any of the radio or talk programs that I've been invited to. I've kept very quiet about this because I'm hopeful that good sense will win the day, and that people who are pushing this thing will understand the harm that they're about to cause, not to me, but to a tremendous amount of innocent victims, the unintended consequences of all this. And I believe that people have good faith. I don't think people will do something like this, that they'll see it to the end with malice. And frankly, I would be very surprised if that happens. If it does happen, then I think we have a serious matter before us. And I understand your concern that by going public, we can add a stick to the carrot. But let's wait a little bit on that.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to echo your comments. The one request I will make is there are economic groups within the county that need to be aware of this information as well, that are stewards of the community's economy. I think the
That's
Greater
being
Miami
done.
Chamber, the Beacon, and so on.
The Greater Miami Chamber,
I believe
the
that
Beacon
should also be
Council,
passed on, if at all
and also
possible.
the chairmen of the various transportation committees in
Absolutely.
the legislature, the Florida Chamber of Commerce, the Association of Contractors, the Association of Engineers, the people that are going to be directly involved, the real estate community, the Team Florida. Well, that you're a member of Team Florida, and I'm sure you'll see that happens. Team Florida is passing resolutions which you have been involved in drafting, which I think you should make available to everyone. So, in other words, it isn't that we're not doing anything. We're working very diligently towards solving the problem.
I respect your opinion, and I will adhere to it, and I agree that we should try this venue first and see how it works out, and hopefully those people who are sponsoring this bill will reflect upon the unintended consequences that it will have.
You know, furthermore, they're going to have to assume the responsibility publicly. In other words,
They will have to assume responsibility for this at some point, yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and actually I might be echoing exactly what the chairwoman of Intergovernmental, as the directive at the Intergovernmental Committee is that the chair and I would be working with our team to ensure that the message is correct, that we discuss what the issues are, what the impacts could be, and we do it in a professional and the most professional manner in that process. So I think I'm echoing what you were going to.
And he's psychic, too.
Psychic?
No.
Oh, he's psychic.
He's
Okay.
psychic. He's saying what you.
Yeah. Well, I thought you said we need a psychic, and I was going to agree with you.
Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Ms. Weinberg.
I want to thank staff and the producers of this document. There's no denying the numbers. And thank you, Vice Chair, for bringing it up. And I love that it's up on the screen as well. The media might call, we're going to be responsive, we're a public agency, but I agree with the Vice Chair wholeheartedly, and we proceed with this very professionally. It's very easy to get behind legislation when you don't know exactly what it means. And this is the one sheet of paper that tells them exactly what that means. I don't see how anyone could stand behind anything that would have that detrimental effect on our community. So I think we're going about it the right way. And thank you for that.
Rodriguez Pina.
Mr. Chairman, I echo a lot of sentiments. I think that the board members here understand the wisdom of putting this information out there, and I think it will be disseminated whether we do it ourselves or through the public at large that has a vested interest. I would ask you to consider the information be sent also to the League of Cities. I think, you know, those municipalities will be potentially
Absolutely.
affected. With regards to understanding the process, I'm very familiar with the Tallahassee process, having been there for nearly 30 years. I think the crafters of this legislation, I'm sure they had noble causes when they originally did this, but I think, like every legislation, there's unintended consequences. So I think, you know, we want to give people the benefit of the doubt. This is a forum for discussion, for input, and we're doing that, so we're providing factual information that our legislators will be able to make a decision. The process is a very lengthy process in Tallahassee, so I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, an abundance of opportunity for the sponsors of the bill to reflect. And ultimately, if their decision is to support this, well, you know, they'll understand from a factual basis what are the implications. So I think, you know, my suggestion is we approach this from a matter of fact. There's a process in Tallahassee, and we live in a democratic society, and let it go through where it needs to go. But at the end of the day, let's go through this process with information, and I think that's what we've established today.
I think we're all saying the same thing.
Yes, sir. Yep.
So, thank you very much. My only additional comment is we're spending a lot of money, and there's a lot involved in this strategic plan. And we're somewhat behind. We're now into almost March. There are 3 meetings going to be held in March. It's very important that Mr. Ahamio, who has been retained to do this work, hear from you and get your opinion. I hope this is a collegial process, that we can all have an input. We're going to have some disagreements. We have to discuss them, and then we're going to eventually have to come to a conclusion. But we have three very important committees, and the vice chair and I will be hopefully participating in all this, and eventually it comes back to the board for a final discussion and a vote. But I would hope that you would pay attention, and we need your input. Okay. The first meeting is the Projects Committee, and that's going to be meeting on the 19th of March at 11. We have the Tech Committee, I'm sorry, the Finance Committee that'll be meeting at 2 p.m. on that same day, the 19th. And hopefully the one that you chair, Mr. Rodriguez Pina, will meet on February the 20th at what time? At 11 a.m.
Mr. Chairman, when we were at Team Florida with Executive Director Rodriguez, we spoke about the potential of a workshop for P3 participants, and we were going to agenda that sometime. I wonder if Mr. Rodriguez has a date, a potential date, we can proceed with that workshop or plan it.
I have not, Mr. Sanabria. In fact, there may be there are opportunities, specific opportunities with the Intermodal Center and with some projects on 836. But given what's been going on, I haven't set a date.
Got it. So after I understand.
After we
so after
resolve
this,
what's
would
going
you
on.
go ahead and put on one of your top on the list? Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything else to come up before the board? Motion to adjourn.
I just have a question, sir. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Unfortunately, I was tied up with work this week, so I couldn't make it. I just wanted to get what the status was on in-house counsel, please.
It's gracious, I left
I'm
that out.
sorry.
I am sorry. We had interviews this week. We interviewed 3 capable candidates and selected one candidate, Mr. Alexander Boker, who is currently an assistant attorney at the Miami-Dade County Attorney's Office. We have sent him over an agreement, or we're sending him over an agreement for his review. The chairman assigned a 4-member committee to finalize the agreement, chaired by Mr. Gonzalez, and we will convene that committee to finalize the terms and conditions of his agreement and bring it to the board for final approval.
I don't know, you've already appointed the people on the committee, because I would like to volunteer for that committee.
I
if
add you to
possible.
the committee. Now we have a 5-member committee.
Thank you.
Before you close, there's 2 things that I wanted to add. One, I spoke to our current in-house counsel, who is priceless, and he has volunteered to stay on through a transition period for our new in-house counsel. And I believe we need to really thank him, because he's made this whole time seamless and without a hiccup. And I really appreciate and wanted to thank you publicly for all the great work you've been doing for us, and also stepping up to the plate and staying on further. But
Well, not only do I agree, but I just want to add, Pat, us and our predecessors, we have had nothing but the very best executive directors. We've had 2. And we've had absolutely wonderful attorneys, counsel. So we're very fortunate that we for the 17 years that we've been around, that we've been led by capable professionals, and that, thank you very much, Richard.
And the last item is that today is somebody's birthday, a very special day, and a very special person at MDX, and we cannot close the day without saying happy birthday, Mr. Executive Director.
So,
Absolutely not.
So he's
6 and holding.
He's expecting to be out of here before 6. So in the spirit of that, there's a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. We stand adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Doesn't get the test.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Richard.
Bye.
I'm just emailing you.